And welcome back. Throughout the pandemic, New York State's judiciary system has experienced major challenges. Once resuming normal operations, the court had the issue of dealing with thousands of backloaded cases. Now, the question is, what is the current state of the judiciary system? Joining us now to share more details, we've got attorney and host of Today's Verdict right here on BronxNet, David Lesh. And David, as we are glad to have you, and I'll start off with the issue. How's it been for you? Because as we talked about a huge backlog of cases prior to COVID and the court system being shut down, but from what I understand, things are beginning to open back up.
Well, I'll just start by saying, I mean, just take a look. I'm in a suit and tie. Other times I've been on your show in the last year and a half, I haven't been. The reason I'm wearing a suit and tie is that I have to be in court today, and you must wear a suit and tie when you're in court. So if that pretty much tells you that things are slowly getting back to the way they used to be. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm able to move cases as fast as I was moving them before, whether it's the personal injury cases or the medical malpractice cases, but the conferences are starting to move quicker. I'm starting to get conferences faster. Those conferences are not always virtual. A lot of times I have to go in to court to conference the case to make sure that all discovery is done. And then, once all discovery is done and the case goes on the trial calendar, that's when we start talking money back and forth from the plaintiff to the defendant attorney back and forth. And if that doesn't happen and you can't settle the case, you get a trial date. Now, during COVID, you really weren't getting too many trial dates. And that was enabling the defendants not to put so much money on cases, knowing that they were not going to be forced to trial. Well, now that we have trial dates, I have 3 coming up, one in December, one in January, one in February, full-blown trials with a judge and a jury that we're ready to go. That basically lets you know that things are getting back to normal. Now, it's not like I have a trial next month or the month after that. So the trials are spaced out at least 3 to 6 months in advance, but we are getting there. And I think the administrative judge of the courthouse, certainly in Bronx County, is trying to go through the backlog and catch up. But, time only knows how long it's going to take to get through the mountain of cases that have piled up over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, you talked to me before, and I know we've had this conversation before that during COVID, a lot of lawyers were encouraging their clients, listen, if a settlement is on the table, probably the best thing to do is to take the settlement, given the fact that you're going to have to wait so long. Is that still the order of the day right now?
I still recommend to my clients that because of the backlog, if they're making a fair offer and you're close to 80% of what you would normally be getting, and you don't have to wait another 2.5, maybe 3 years sometimes, especially if you're suing the city of New York, the backlog there is so long. I say to them, you're better off maybe taking the money now, investing it in something else to make some money off of that money, than to wait the 2.5 years. And by the way, you never know what happens. You go in front of a jury, you never know what a jury is going to do. So it behooves you to think rationally. And I always use this way of thinking when I'm talking to a client who's a little bit on the fence. I say, look, I have X amount of cases in this office. I said, you only have one case. I said, if I lose your case or you don't get any money, that's your only case. I make fees on many other cases. So I will say to them, do you really want to roll the dice on this case? I said, this is your only case. So do you want to wait 2.5 years and then roll the dice? I mean, you're getting 80% of the money now. And a lot of times when I tell them that, and they understand how long they have to wait, they usually do take my advice and they will settle the case. But then it still takes 30 days just to get the money in after they sign the release, and 90 days to get the money in if they're suing the city of New York and they sign the release. So there's still a time limit. But the answer to your question is, I do recommend taking a settlement if it means waiting for a very long time for a trial. And yes, most of my clients do take my advice.
Yeah. And so right now, what are we seeing in the courts? Are we seeing a particular style in terms of, I know we want to talk about wrongful death and that seems to be rising up in the court system right now. What about I know that's huge too, given the fact that we had the eviction moratorium stopped.
That's right. Well, you're absolutely correct. You know, the landlord tenant court is flooded with cases. Landlords are filing just one after another, from what I'm told. And I don't really do landlord tenant work, but my clients, in terms of the ones that I do personal injury, come in and are constantly asking me, you know, what's going on? What should they do? Because it turns out that they're getting these eviction notices or holdovers. So what I usually tell them, I said, look, the courthouse is on 167th Street in the Grand Concourse. Go in there, go to the order to show cause window, take out an order to show cause, ask to see the judge. You won't need a lawyer, and tell them what's preventing you from paying your rent. Maybe you don't believe that the landlord is doing the proper repairs, or maybe there are some other issues that are going on. Maybe there's bed bugs or there are other issues. You know, maybe that's why you're not paying. Let's get it in front of a judge. I don't think you need a lawyer. You'll be able to get in there and do it on your own. If you need a lawyer, we'll find you one. And that's what I usually recommend when they come in. But from what I am told, landlord tenant court is packed with cases to get through the backload over the last 2.5 years. It's not the most pleasant place to practice as an attorney either. It's tough, but you know, everything's been, was put on hold, and now we're all playing catch up. With respect to the other types of cases I'm handling, and you know, one type of case that I did want to talk to the viewers about, which I think is important, has to do with the wrongful death cases, because no matter how many times I get these cases in, and I have one that just came in recently that I'm reviewing, the viewers don't really understand what it means when you have someone, unfortunately, who dies as a result of somebody's negligence. That could be motorcycle, that could be somebody working for a particular company and they get hurt. Even if it's on the job, if you can show a grave injury, you can sue for wrongful death. But they always, feel that, look, Mr. Lesh, I've been suffering myself. I lost my wife. I lost my child. I should be able to recover from my emotional pain. I've had to miss work. Emotionally, I can't deal with it. I've been seeing a psychiatrist. The family is just a wreck. And I say to them, you can't recover for that. I said, that's your own emotional pain. I said, there is no recovery. For wrongful death, you can only recover for your pecuniary loss, your monetary loss. And by the way, if you can't show that the decedent and the person who passed away was actually supporting you, there's no case. There'll be a motion to dismiss. So it does not matter that you have a great relationship with your dad or your sibling or your child, but if they were not supporting you financially, your case will be dismissed because it's based on pecuniary loss. And if they don't have a will, you got to go to the statute to find out who takes as a result of the intestacy. You die without a will, your children, no children, your parents, no parents, Andrew's uncles and aunts, and you find somebody, the attorney, who brings the case has to appoint an administrator, and that person, who you're going to be getting money for in the wrongful death, has to have a financial pecuniary loss. How much was this decedent supporting you? What was his life expectancy? He had a great job. He was going to be supporting you for the next 20 years. And then that adds up. Now, there is one thing, Darren, this is very, very important. It's called a survivorship action, and it goes hand in hand with the wrongful death action. A survivorship action is, just so you understand, the action belongs to the estate for the decedent's pain and suffering prior to death, meaning you're recovering for the pain and suffering that the decedent experienced before they died. If it's an instantaneous death, there's no recovery. But if the person lingered, could have only been for seconds, that they screamed or they yelled before the car hit them, or they moaned, that's example before they died. That's an example that the emotion that they physically suffered pain themselves. So you can recover for that. That you can recover for. That's called a survivorship action. But your own emotional pain, you can't. And my viewers, many times don't understand that. And my clients don't understand that. And we're trying to change that in the legislature. We haven't been able to do it yet. We're working on it, but it's a very important thing that I want everybody to know in terms of cases, those types of cases. I thought, it's been a long time since I've come on your show and I've been give legal tips. I used to go through the alphabet. I guess I'd be up to W for wrongful death. But this is an area that I find that most people in the Bronx certainly don't know this. And I just think it's so important. And as the courthouse gets back functioning and the wrongful death cases start moving along, and that's where the big money is, Darren. That's where you really recover a lot of money, millions of dollars. It's for pecuniary loss. You get yourself an economist, the plaintiff's attorney, pay the money for the economist to see how much that decedent would have made. It's so important. And you go in there and you do the best you can. So that's something I wanted to discuss, is handling these death cases in New York. Very, very important. You get the right attorney and they understand, what the recovery is. I hope that helps.
Well, we got the right man to break it down. David Lesh, our legal analyst. You see him on BronxNet, also the host of today's verdict. And David, we got to leave it there, but thank you, of course, for bringing it back and bring us up to speed with what's happening in the courts. In the meantime, stay busy, my friend.
It's always great seeing you, Darren.
All righty, take care. And want to let you know, viewers, we got more, so don't go anywhere with us. We'll continue in a moment.